Evidence Does Not Lie, Part 1. In a meeting on January 15th, 2024, Bandler read from a prepared statement. Commissioner Bogan and Tim Renfrew attended this meeting.
A couple of months ago, during the budget process, it was brought to our attention that something was irregular with the insurance premiums for 4 association buildings. That's out of 134. We discovered the past appraiser flip-flopped 2 32-unit buildings with 2 48-unit buildings property value. I contacted Travers Insurance to find out if he had any experience with this. Tim Renfrew is in the audience here. Felt that the response from the past appraiser would be straighten the premium adjustment in-house. This would mean the 2 buildings that underpaid would repay the 2 buildings that overpaid. I told them I would have none of it. The appraising company is a professional, licensed, and insured company and entity and should be responsible. Enters Bogan Law Group. Mark Bogan's in the house. Mark agreed that whether they have errors in emission insurance or not, they should bear the responsibility. A lawsuit could take years. Therefore, I was pleased that Travers agreed to outlay the reimbursement to the 2 overpaid buildings. Travers has one condition, that Winmore files a suit versus the appraiser, and when the funds are recovered, they would be remitted back to Travers.
The fault for this flip-flop lay with the past appraiser, and Renfrew, out of the goodness of his heart, would reimburse these 2 associations on condition Bogan sued the appraiser on WC's behalf to get his money back. At the time, none of this made sense. Our building just happened to be one of the 2 buildings that was overcharged. Was it true, or was it done to show how honourable they were and to shut us up? How was it possible that the amount for this 4-building flip-flop was exactly the same? And why did it take 3 years to catch it? Blaming it on the appraiser seemed like a convenient excuse. One would think with Renfrew's hefty commissions and his great service that you are repeatedly told about, would have caught it immediately. And where was CFO Arnold in all of this? He's the one in control of your finances. How is it possible he didn't catch it? Were these people asleep at the wheel? Or was this a cover-up? According to the premiums charged in 2023, the 2 32-unit buildings who were overcharged were 4702 and 4401. They were charged $66,180. The 2 48-unit buildings they claimed were undercharged were 4701 and 4402. They were charged $47,280. If this was a flip-flop, why were their appraised values on the policy in accordance with their number of units? 4702 and 4401 were both appraised 4.8 million. 4701 was appraised 5.7 million and 4402 at 6.8 million. Even with just over $1 million difference in their appraised value, their premium of $47,280 that they claimed was undercharged was not true. Together, they were overcharged $10,471 according to their appraised value. An explanation is needed as to why there was $1 million difference in their appraisal when both have 48 units. There was no flip-flop of the appraised values on the policy. If the flip-flop was not made by the appraiser, who made it? It seemed more likely that the flip-flop was made by CFO Arnold and or Renfrew when they calculated the premiums. In 2023, the 2 32-unit buildings should have been charged $43,000 according to their appraised value, not $66,180, an overcharge of $23,000. If this overcharge was for 1 year, how can the overcharge they claim of $41,500 be for 3 years? If the appraised value on the policy was correct, how could the appraiser be blamed for the inflated premium if the premiums are calculated by CFO Arnold and or Renfrew? Could CFO Arnold and or Renfro have changed the appraised values when calculating the premium, and this was how the flip-flop came about? Could it be possible? And why are the premiums not allocated to each building by the insurance company? Why is it left to Renfro and CFO Arnold? If it's true that Renfro and Arnold caused the flip-flop by changing the appraised values, it opens up a whole new can of massive worms stacked on top of an already overstuffed can of bloated insurance worms. It turned out that none of the buildings in Martinique were undercharged. They were all overcharged according to their appraised value. In 2023, the premium for Martinique was $323,422. They paid $467,676, an overcharge of $144,254. Can any of Bandler's claims from the January meeting be considered credible? If they increased the appraised values, was it possible it was done to inflate the premiums? This was too unthinkable to consider. Bandler then introduced Commissioner Bogan.
Big thanks to Mark Bogan and Tim Renfro. I'd like you guys to come up here now.
So as what Bruce said, found out that the appraisal company, just so you know, and you'll correct me if I'm wrong, so how do they determine what your insurance rate is? These insurance companies, they do the appraisal on your buildings by the number of units, what the value of the building keeps going up, and that's why your insurance premiums, I guess, keep going up. Anyway, they flip-flop these two buildings with the other two buildings, and so our firm is going to file an action. I think we should get the thing resolved because it's a clear mistake made by the appraisal company, and what the solution is, everybody's made whole. And so I don't know what else to say about it, but
just that we want to get the money back to these two associations as quick as possible.
Well, that's where Tim comes.
Commissioner Bogan confirmed what Bandler said. The appraiser flip-flopped two buildings with another two buildings, and he was going to sue them because he wanted to make everyone whole. It's always in the details. Notice Commissioner Bogan said it was a clear mistake by the present company. Bandler had just said they have a new appraisal company, so how could the mistake be made by the present appraiser? It may seem like an insignificant detail, but the truth is revealed in the details. Nothing was mentioned about this lawsuit again. Did Commissioner Bogan ever file one against the old appraiser to get Renfro his money back? Is Renfro still waiting for his money? Or did he even pay this amount at all? Bandler then introduced Renfro, but as he began to speak, someone asked Bandler how much the overcharge was.
$41,500 over a 3-year period.
That's quite a sum of money that they failed to catch over a 3-year period. Renfro then gave his usual ingratiating, self-serving speech. He confirmed what a generous man he was and complimented Keith for catching it early. Renfro considers 3 years an early catch.
His group did catch this very early, and I'm surprised that they probably were able to catch it all.
No, we're the ones who are surprised this error was made at all. He continued with a rambling explanation about the appraiser.
What helped facilitate this was that, as everybody knows, we're in a very volatile insurance market. Volatile, not just that rates are going up, but insurance companies are scrutinizing evaluations like never before. We do work with an appraisal company that specializes in just condominium associations. So we recommended to Winmore that we use this other appraisal company that the insurance companies deal with on a daily basis. Not to say that the other company, they don't do good insurance work. They do. At the end of the day, Winmore was able to come up with this. They found it internally. You guys have been a good client of Travers Hartnett for many years.
Yes, indeed we have, Tim. Indeed we have. How much have you collected in commission for all the years you have been the agent?
In all probability, I've been assured that this is going to be taken care of. But being a good client of ours, it may take, I don't know, a couple years to get taken care of. Travers Hartnett has agreed to front the money, but I want to make sure that we get our money on the back end for this era. So again, it's fortunate that it was found. It's fortunate that nothing happened, that everyone is going to be made whole, and that no one is penalized over it.
Was this the party line for the meeting? Commissioner Bogan said at first, everyone will be made whole, and then Renfro dutifully repeated it.
Hi, Bob Horowitz, Abaco. A question for you. You said they flopped the two buildings.
It's actually 4 buildings.
They flopped them. So that means that one village owes more, owes $41,000 in taxes, and the other one overpaid. And premium, right?
Yep. It looked like it was a clerical error.
A clerical error made by whom?
You know, we've got...
No, I understand that. So my question is, your lawsuit and what you're pursuing is the mistake on the village that overpaid. What about the 4 buildings that underpaid?
Commissioner Bogan chipped in and gave his stamp of approval by reinforcing the claims made by Bandler and Renfro.
So we're
Shouldn't they just pay each
going to
other?
go after the appraisal company for the error they made, but the carrier who gets all the money at the end, right? They're not going after the 2 buildings. They're not going after the 2 buildings that underpaid because they got their money from the overpayment. So 2 buildings actually got to benefit. So the carrier is not going after those 2 buildings.
So next year, those 2 buildings that underpaid, they're gonna have to anticipate a much larger increase.
It happened this year. That happened with this year's appraisal.
This year now.
Bob asked a very good question. Would the 2 buildings who were supposed to have underpaid have their premiums increased for 2024 to make up for their underpayment? They certainly did.
The past 3 years, not the current. The current budgets are correct. So this goes back to the 3 years before.
This was said on January 15th, 2024, which meant the overcharges and undercharges occurred in 2021, 22, and 23. Except the evidence contradicts this. There was nothing correct about 2024. In 2024, the premiums for buildings 4701 and 4402 skyrocketed from $47,280 to over $90,000, even though their 23 premiums were not undercharged based on their appraised values. In fact, those 2 buildings were overcharged by more than $10,000 in 2023. What made this alleged undercharge even less credible was that the 4 48-unit buildings, 4701, 4402, 4301, and 4302, all had similar appraisal values in 2023. Yet, in 2024, the appraised values for 4701, 4402, and 4301 suddenly increased by roughly $3 million each, but not 4302. Despite these similarities, 4701, 4402, and 4301 were each charged over $90,000, while 4302 was charged only $76,000. Nothing about these appraised values or the resulting premiums added up. The appraisals and premiums were a disorganized jumble of baseless figures reflecting no logical or transparent calculation method. In 2024, the year Bandler claimed was correct, the premium on the policy for Martinique was $462,493. The amount charged was $631,632, an overcharge of $169,139. The loan cost for 2024 was $273,343. That's an amount of about $2,039 if it was divided amongst the 134 buildings. Nowhere near the $169,139. These appraised values and premium allocations were a catastrophic mess. Martinique wasn't the only one overcharged. The evidence shows its excess exceeded 41,500, and every association has faced and still faces similar overbilling. If they hired a new appraiser in 2024 as they claimed, where was his report? The evidence will show there wasn't one. So who was responsible for these appraisals? What does it say about Bandler, Renfro, and Commissioner Bogan, who presented the story that the appraiser was to blame for this flip-flop, when the evidence clearly refutes it? How many years has this been happening? How much have you been overcharged? And why have your council representatives allowed it to continue? Stay tuned for part 2, where new evidence will turn everything from the January 15, 2024 meeting on its head.